In today's ever-evolving workplace, inclusivity and the effective transfer of skills and knowledge are crucial for fostering a harmonious and productive working environment. To delve deeper into these vital topics, we are honored to have Dr. Nolwandle Mgoqi with us. Dr. Mgoqi is passionate about organisational development and inclusivity, and she's also the CEO of Aon South Africa. In our discussion today, we will explore the multifaceted dimensions of inclusivity, encompassing women, the older generation, and younger professionals. We aim to uncover strategies and insights that can help create more inclusive workplaces where everyone, regardless of their background, can thrive and contribute meaningfully. I think let's start, Dr. Mgoqi. Thank you for joining me, but let's start with a quick introduction of who you are.
Hi, thank you, Rianet. I really appreciate the opportunity to join you on this important topic. I'm Nolwandle Mgoqi, as you've said. I look after South Africa, Aon South Africa.
So let's start our conversation by defining inclusivity. What does it mean in the context of this modern South African working environment?
Thank you once again. I think this is a very important topic, Rianet, especially as it pertains to South Africa. We are a nation famously dubbed the Rainbow Nation for the vibrant diversity. However, what one will actually notice, the economic inequalities remain a significant challenge in our modern South Africa. Addressing these disparities is crucial for fostering a sense of fairness as well as belonging. You're asking about inclusion. The principles of inclusions have become increasingly pivotal in our work environment because they're important in promoting the growth as well as actually unity within the workforce. And thus play a very significant role in the broader social reconstruction. We're fortunate that we've got a legislation which provides a robust framework to promote diversity as well as inclusion. So when we look in terms of overall definition of what inclusivity actually talks to, it's really about creating an environment where all colleagues, regardless of their identity or the background, feel respected, valued, and are empowered to contribute fully to the organization. I often say that it goes beyond demographics. It's about ensuring that people from different backgrounds and viewpoints are actively included in all aspects of the workplace, and that they feel and experience fair and equal opportunities overall. The importance for women, I think, the inclusion for women means more economic opportunities and represents the opportunity to change the social outcomes and narrative, particularly for generations of women going forward. It is also about creating an environment where people feel they are being seen, they are heard, and they're valued as individuals as well as professionals.
Nolwandle, it's August. August is Women's Month, so at FAnews we will also focus on Women's Month in our August edition. So my question regarding specifically women, what challenges do you believe women face in the workplace today? And I mean, there are quite a few. So for you, the most important challenges you feel women face, and how do we address that?
Rianet, whilst we may have seen pockets of progress and the rise in the involvement of women in the workplace, however, indications are that this progress has been stalled or is stalled. We've not seen a large number of women actually moving into significant roles in the workplace. So simply put, then, women in the workplace still face some systematic challenges. And these include gender-based biases, unequal pay, as well as limited opportunity or advancement opportunities for their careers. There's still a number of gaps and underrepresentation at the most senior levels for women. When we look in terms of the gender-based biases, and these manifest in the various ways, for example, we talk about the unequal pay. we're still looking in terms of the limited opportunities for career advancement, as I've said. Harassment or discrimination is actually one of the biggest challenges that we've seen over time. And again, I think the most often stereotype-based type of gender challenges that women face. When we look in terms of unequal pay, research has actually just shown, I looked at work that has been done across 15 countries, that on average, women worldwide earn less than men doing the same job. Lack of representation in leadership position, globally, women across all industries hold less than a third of leadership positions. And these are some of the real challenges that women actually face. We also see a lot of women struggling to navigate their identity in the workplace, as well as home, as well as in the social spaces. The one that is actually most of a challenge that we see often, and is potentially one of the biggest impediments for women to actually rise, is what I consider self-imposed limitation tendencies. And I think this is mostly referred to as the imposter syndrome. The self-doubt that people have as female results into some feeling skeptical as well as undeserving of their accomplishments. When women often feel that they have to do more to validate themselves in their respective roles, instead of harnessing their strength and what they bring to the table. There's so many examples that are spoken about around having a seat at the table. We do have a seat at the table, but at times, for the most part, we question the validity of our position on the table. And yet we are given the table. We know that this is in part a phenomenon that is driven largely from a societal point of view, the pressures that women face in the environment, cultural expectation, as well as the prevailing gender stereotype. So in addressing these, promoting women in leadership, particularly breaking the glass ceiling, requires a concerted effort to promote women into leadership roles. This does not only address the pay disparities, but it also will help foster a more inclusive workforce and culture. I will also highlight, to mitigate some of these challenges, we need to start looking in terms of encouraging skills development initiatives for women that will aid in ensuring more women take on higher paying roles, which will narrow the pay gap over time. We need to actually start seeing more transparent pay policies or salary policies. And I do believe, Rianet, adopting a transparency in salary policies and determining criteria for salaries will help eliminate some of these biases that we're talking about, ensure that we experience fairness in competition.
Two things you've mentioned, the transparency around salaries. I think you'll open a can of worms there. It's going to be interesting.
I think we have to start somewhere.
But it's valid. It's valid.
We have to start somewhere.
Yeah. And the other comment around self-doubt, I think we can have a whole conversation on our own about self-doubt. We are all there.
Yeah.
And it is a concerted effort to move forward when you've got that self-doubt. And you need people behind you and with you to remind you of that. So a very, very valid point. As part of Women's Month, we also want to focus on the bigger picture here at FAnews, and that is around skills transfer for not only for women, but for everyone, around empowering people, around growing people. So for us, that's our bigger focus for August. Transfer of skills is something that has become really a big passion of mine after having a lot of conversations in the industry. Being the founder of the Insurance Apprentice, I deal with the younger professionals under 35 and starting an alumni now. And some of the conversation delves around the fact that there's not a very concerted open effort to transfer skills and knowledge. And it's something we've spoken earlier when Aon did the second episode of the Insurance Apprentice this year. It was around this whole topic.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's quite an issue for me is how do we motivate, incentivize, get the guys and women nearing retirement to have a more open way of transferring skills and knowledge. How do we effectively pull that generation in to hand over to a younger generation? Because I think they feel threatened. There's a lot of things that goes with that, and I know you are also quite passionate about that.
Certainly, Rianet. I mean, without a doubt, we are in a period of generational tension. And I call it, it's a tension because, and for the success of our industry, we need to address it. Mm-hmm. Establishment of intergenerational cooperation is of utmost importance and should be embedded in the organizational culture. It's a pity that we talk about succession plan, particularly when people are nearing retirement, so close to them retiring. And for me, it doesn't only actually impacts when people retire. It's also when people leave the organization.
100%, yeah.
And what we need to ensure is that this is embedded in the culture to ensure a mutual relationship characterized by mutual respect. It starts with embracing, one, this intergenerational diversity as a benefit in sharing as well as discussing different perspectives. There has to be a greater appreciation and recognizing the value systems, attitude, as well as different generation, what each generation brings into the table. And I think for us mature, I would like to refer to us as mature colleagues, there is a requirement for us to transfer skills and expertise. It's an imperative for us to pass down this valuable knowledge and mentor our young counterparts. I believe this actually will help facilitate succession planning, which has been an issue in the industry, as I've actually highlighted. We are increasingly seeing the skill sets and experiential knowledge sits with a limited few who have been in the industry for much longer. And I dare say that women are in the larger majority of disadvantage in that regard, as there's very few women who've actually been in the industry for longer, and therefore people that can easily transfer the skills. We have sizable pockets in some of the area, not consistently. So the success of doing this will come from cooperation, Rianet. We need to avoid what I call the knowledge crash. It also can't be done in the way we want to be done. I often say that with this generation, particularly the younger generation, we have to balance that how we got here is not necessarily how they want to get there. How they want to learn is completely different to how we've actually been advised as we're coming up. And understanding these differences and nuances and using them as catalysts to ensure this full cooperation becomes even more important. We certainly have to avoid this notion of passing on generational traumas. And I call it a trauma because there's an expectation somehow. The reason why there's so much intergenerational tension is we passing our own traumas or those before us into this younger generation as a prescriptive to how we can actually transfer skills. But what's going to be critical is basically driving this intergenerational skills share, understanding the value system on both parties.
Talking about the knowledge and skills transfer, how do you do it at Aon? Have you started implementing a very solid, specific plan on how this should happen?
Rianet, I think, one has to be more deliberate around this. And I think Aon, as part of its organizational culture, we are in a journey to actually embed this intergenerational knowledge transfer as part of our way forward. And I think what we're looking at is really focusing both the technical, which is actually more explicit, bringing in more experience, technical competences into the business, so that we can actually build a pipeline for succession plan. You know, we've been fortunate that our industry has a lot of young people who are coming in.
Yeah.
And Aon is actually fortunate to have a sizable number of those who've actually been with an organization. And again, tribute to the fact that this is actually a learning organization, and driving that through the young people, but balancing it with the skill set, the technical knowledge from an experienced individuals who've been in the industry, who bring experiential knowledge, is part of our strategy. Focusing on the technical part becomes much more explicit. But there's another part that we need to actually look at from an approach, which is basically the tactical or tactical part, which is basically on the social part. And that's actually one of the areas that we're actually looking at as well, because we believe a combination of both explicit and tacit social approach to knowledge sharing has got much more bigger benefits for the organization. It's also an invaluable process when transferring more coded information compared to a social approach, which is really suited for transferring some of the implicit knowledge. Because we need to actually, it's not only about teaching the technical skills, it's about how do you manage stakeholders? You know, how do you engage
100%.
and still actually get the same outcome? And I think this is actually successful in some of the learning organizations, because that's a process in which they build communities of learning and practice, where these intergenerational relations and mutual learning is actually reinforced. And we certainly hope that we can build upon what we've actually started to ensure that we have capacity for the future in a much more coordinated way, bringing the strengths of both the Gen Z as well as the Gen Y into the fold.
Talking about Gen Z and Gen Y, how do we create a more inclusive environment for specifically young professionals entering the job market?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I think previously, this is the young generation. We need, one of the things that is becoming very clear, we need to accept that and not acknowledge that they are seeing their career path completely differently to the generation before them, and including us. And COVID actually has not helped. Coming out of the pandemic,
Yeah.
a whole lot of the younger generation were actually learning and engaging from a business point of view in the early careers via online.
Sure.
And they've actually been able to master that also because they're much more facile with technology. So inclusivity is going to come not only from looking, I simplify to say, we tick the box that we hire people for IQ, and we're also emphasizing the EQ. The success for us to actually drive the inclusivity for young people is going to come from also adding adaptability. So it's an AI, or is it, what did I say, IQ, EQ, and adaptability quotient.
Okay.
And that's going to become very important because we're required to create much more flexible environment for them to thrive, and defining success with them and not for them. And this means being comfortable that our own ways of working being challenged as the mature generation. It's going to actually require that we teach them the way they want to be taught. You know, it's all about preparing the next generation for their future, not our past. And the important part around the inclusivity is going to have to actually also go beyond, as I said, race as well as gender. There is diversity in thinking in the generational mix. We can sit at the table together and deliberate. And one of the things that are very clear, Rianet, is that this younger generation, I mean, they're less likely to invest their time and energy if it seems irrelevant to the demands of the real world. And this is where the adaptability from our side is actually going to come in.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting journey because with inclusivity, you also, I think, have to find the balance between the older generation and the younger generation. And finding the balance, I think, is one of the most challenging things and critical things that we are faces the industry now.
Yeah. We're going to have to it's going to require imagination. It's going to require empathy from our side, resilience and ability, to just fail forward. But we have to start. As I said, we are at a very critical stage and the tension is there. And our industry actually requires the entry of the young people. But at the same time, we have to safeguard our business, ensuring that
100%.
we don't lose out on the critical skills.
100%.
And how do we incentivize those with the skill to be able to transfer knowledge to the younger generation?
When you have that recipe and you can sell it, you're going to make millions.
I'm working on it for you.
Nolwandle, your view on the importance of mentorship, coaching, and having a sponsor in terms of this whole bigger picture.
Sure. I think we are where we are because there was someone who was prepared to give us a chance. And throughout our career path, and I'll speak for myself, I've had sponsors, both male and females. And a sponsor is someone who allows you and gives you the platform to grow and mentors you and coaches you. And it's not someone who's actually telling you that you're doing right all the time, but someone who believes in you and they give you the platform. And I think that needs to continue, Rianet. Mentorship and sponsorship create, in my view, the more inclusive environment by supporting diverse talent, ensuring that the available knowledge and opportunities are distributed more equitably. When we coach, I think the benefit for the mentees, it allows them to navigate the challenging environment. It helps them build confidence, and people feel more valued with an organization because they're supported. It therefore is very critical to open doors for opportunity and use influence as leaders to promote our people. Because it not only helps individuals, but it also helps the organization overcome some of these biases and accelerate inclusivity and diversity at all levels. Coaching becomes important because you share experiences, you're sharing expertise, as well as organizational culture. If you have a coach within the organization, that's someone who can actually help you maneuver within the organization. But I often say that you need to find also someone outside of the organization who can objectively give you a perspective. And that person is a person that you can be vulnerable with, to ask pertinent questions as to how because remember at work, you want to be seen as prim and proper, that you know it all. If you have a coach internal, you may feel the limitations to actually be vulnerable. So this is actually important that organizations support both internal as well as external mentorship programs for their individuals to be able to grow.
We have a big younger professional following, a lot because of the Insurance Apprentice. And it's a conversation I've had a lot is around the mentorship, coaching and sponsor issue. And maybe just briefly answer the following question, because I think there's a lot of uncertainty still with maybe not the professionals under 35, but the much younger people coming into the industry now is, do you go and find your coach, mentor and sponsor, or do they approach you? Just for educational purposes.
Yeah. It actually goes both ways. In learning organization, usually they identify the talent within to say, this is a talent pool. And they will take those people through a program and avail mentors. Sometimes I always say there's resistance to that because individuals always say, I don't need a mentor. I don't need a coach. And I'll encourage people to take feedback, particularly from your manager, on how you're doing with your work and from your colleagues. It's constructive. But actually to work on that, you need to take the drive to say, what are the avenues that I can use? Approach a mentor, go to your head of human resources or human capital to see if there's a network of coaches that they're actually enter to use. And I think that our industry has done very well, Rianet, in actually availing opportunities. I mean, there's quite a number of these that are actually driven also through the Gauteng women in insurance. There's some of through SAIA, I mean, through IISA. So our industry has actually availed a lot of this, and I'll encourage people to take advantage of that and identify someone that you feel that you can learn from, not someone that's going to agree with you. And I think that's a mistake sometimes we make, that we take coaches as people who have to agree with us. A coach is someone who actually gives you constructive feedback.
Yeah. I think when you at the point in your life where you reach out for a coach or a mentor, you have to go in with a mindset that don't expect fluffy feedback. Go in with it and know that you have to listen and be.
And remember, Rianet, the coach, it's their time. And they come into this seriously to actually impart some knowledge. And I think as a recipient, it's important to ensure that you maximize on that. I still have a coach that I meet every month, because you are never arrived. You're never there on your own.
You're never too old to learn, right?
Exactly.
You mentioned the Rainbow Nation. How do businesses support employees from the different backgrounds in feeling secure and valued in their roles?
It's a journey, as I said. We've made some progress, but in some areas, this is actually still stalled. We need to continue promoting inclusive hiring. The inclusive hiring practices that focus on individuals' qualifications, that focus on skill, that focus on expertise, more than they focus around their personal life choices as well as their background. To promote inclusivity, also it's around ensuring that in those hiring processes, you've got a diverse panel. And we have to address the unconscious bias. It's still there. And I think what we need to do is being comfortable also employing people who know more than we do. Because inclusivity, as I said, is about being embracing of diverse thinking. And we need to bring experience that shapes the decisions for the better. And that comes through diversity.
How important is, as a side question, having fun as part of the culture of a company?
It is important. And that's something that we don't tend to do a lot. We focus on the outcomes. And we leave very little time to celebrate successes. And we're all guilty of that. I've actually spoken to the organization to say we have to celebrate small wins.
Yes.
Life is not about precision. It's about celebrating milestones as you're getting there.
I love that. And for me, it's also very important to always celebrate the small little things, because that is what motivates you to go to your next achievement. A last message to the FAnews audience, Nolwandle, about, especially to the leaders, those people who's in a position to transfer their skills, those who are eager to learn more, your last message heading into Women's Month.
As leaders, we need to recognize and understand our own biases. Be open about them. We need to seek to understand others without prejudging, as well as avoid stereotypes. Empowering as well as supporting our colleagues becomes an imperative. And we have to lead by examples. For those of us as women who are in a position to influence, we need to do that, demonstrating respect, empathy for the ones who are actually looking up to us, and having an open-mindedness in all our interactions. We need to commit to continuous learning about diversity, equity, and inclusion issues. And that also requires being able to get feedback from those we lead. We can't overemphasize the collaboration that we need to deal with, as well as knowledge sharing ideas. As we enter this Women's Month, let us remember to lift each other as we climb.
I love that. Thank you for your time, Dr. Nolwandle. It was nice to have a chat with you on this very important topic. And enjoy Women's Month. And when you found that recipe, let us know.
Well, certainly do. Thank you very much, Rianet, for the opportunity. And happy Women's Month to you and all of the other women.
Thank you.